Okay, baby, let's go.
It's not. You just run up the stairs. Right. I hope we got that live stream that you just walked into something.
We like.
Should be enough. Dara's out of breath. He walked up the stairs. That's what you're wondering.
I think they're shadows around me.
Dara late. He was just pooping, I believe. Now we should be in 1080p today.
Do you know what the P stands for?
I want to say pixels, but I assume that's wrong, is it?
I don't know.
Oh, I thought that was a question.
No.
You asked that like
I did.
what I'm going to tell you. You know? Yes.
How's your audio? Did it say Steve studio on the screen there?
Yeah, you can gain some things. Oh, that's yeah.
There we go.
The drum roll.
Drum roll, please. Oh, there's a little soundboard.
Wow.
Wow. That's what we are. We're a laughing stock of the strength and conditioning community.
There is no community. Right. We'll wait till a few more people.
It's just a ball of hatred.
Would you, when I'm trying to talk to the people,
Do you not like that?
Stop talking over me. So
I feel like we need a monitor or something with the comments on them.
yeah, it's right here.
We're looking down, you know.
Yeah. Normally people are streaming, they're like gaming, and they're like here,
They're like right here.
and then they're like kind of look over a little bit, but they're not even paying attention to people in the chat. But
Okay.
we look at what they say.
I find I can't not pay attention.
To the live chat,
Yeah.
they do say people get addicted to it, I suppose.
Someone's calling you Ginger Spice.
That's the fella.
Is that S Club 7?
S Club 7.
Spice
No,
Girls.
Spice
Sorry.
Girls.
God almighty, that was terrible.
Banana Bread says he loves you lads. And OG Banana Bread. Evan Lee's here as well. Evan Lee has a #1 crown. Can Evan see that though?
Number one.
Okay. How did I do that? Things, media. Whoa. Can I edit that, I wonder?
Oh, Evan got injured doing some squats. Evan, I hope you're all right. Definitely going for an MRI as soon as possible is the best thing. I can't tell you how many times I've told people just to go and get a scan.
What always gets me is when people are clearly very seriously injured. For example, the amount of DMs I've gotten about people who've broken their foot in the last year, you wouldn't
Broken
believe.
their foot.
And been like, what do you do? And you're like,
Go to the hospital.
go to the hospital, talk to the doctor.
The last thing you should be doing is messaging a random person on Instagram.
Hey, I'm not random.
You're as random as it gets.
I'm not random. New show. What's annoying me is that slight black box around this.
Yes. The kind of picture-in-picture style.
And so obviously, when people ask me about my broken foot, I just give them a complete prescription of meds and drugs.
Yeah, you tell them exactly how to fix it.
Yeah.
Because you're a doctor. I forgot that.
Now, I know, to be fair, a lot of times people are messaging me just to make sure that it'll be okay. And I understand hope is very valuable, obviously. But,
Is it though?
Unless, yeah, of course it is.
Is hope as valuable as going to the doctor is?
Oh, no, but it is nice to hear someone be like, no, it's back to perfect.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But sure, I was way stronger than you before you broke your foot anyway, so it's not even comparable. I'm joking. I am just joking.
The timestamp officer is in the chat. Do you know, I forgot that the timestamp officer was a thing until I went onto the members page and I saw Sam Jung once again posting the timestamps. Could not get over it.
Sam, actually, yeah, you're in the southern hemisphere, aren't you? Look at that. Yeah, that's not a timer.
What are we doing?
You can do it, but it counts down for like 10 seconds, you know?
Ah,
Customize.
so much going on here. Today is a news show live stream. Does it say that in the title?
You're so behind everyone else, it's actually embarrassing. Can move it over here.
Welcome to our live news show, Karlos.
New show. Wow, look how professional it is. New show.
Oh my God, I don't like that it's purple.
We can change that, I'd say. Edit text. Customize. It's not really many options for color, to be honest. Staying purple, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'd like some brand specific.
Were you about to say the word that you hate the most?
Jesus Christ. I'd just jump out the window right now if I'd said it. Sam is in New Zealand.
Is Sinazzo legal for a squat challenge? There's no way of testing, so it's like, strongmen technically say that drug testing isn't allowed, I believe.
I think it's in their contract, isn't it?
But they don't do any drug testing. So it's like Pancras when Bas Rutten was there. They're just going, wow. Or Mark Kerr. Whatever
Right.
he's fighting, and clearly everyone's taking drugs.
Yeah. I know in the OG days of what? Oh, Pride in Japan.
Yeah.
You say it in the contract.
Did you have to take them?
Yeah. That you would take performance enhancing drugs.
Okay, we've got 37. We'll give it a few more secaroonies.
Oh, Rambo's in the chat. Same shit shirt again, Fitzberry. Oh my God.
All right. Okay.
All right.
Rambo, you're getting banned. You're out of here. One more strike. Should you be in bed? It's like 10 o'clock, no? 11 o'clock?
What time? Are they 8 hours ahead?
I think it's 8 hours ahead, yeah. When he left us.
Rambo's just sad and lonely.
Yeah, well, his wife has left him. We left him. He left us, actually. We're moving on, Rambo. We don't need you anymore.
We need you, Rambo. Come home.
Daniel says, can you run weights in 2.0 with hang snatch and clean and jerk instead? Yeah, you could do that. Yeah, if you really wanted to.
My question is why?
Maybe you just want to do big hang snatches.
Yeah.
Put in your 1 rep max hang snatch. I don't see why that wouldn't work. Nathaniel is excited for the new show. Podzian was popped for a coke at World's Strongest Man back in the day.
Sure, who wasn't?
Is he still doing MMA? Wait, didn't he fight Eddie Hall recently?
Did he?
That sounds familiar. That does sound familiar.
It's strange when it's not a Q&A and people aren't asking questions. There's just random things happening in the chat, isn't it?
I'm happy at random things in the chat.
Who's up first for the new show?
Whoa, Mr. Impatient. You need to relax a bit. Do you know that?
Why?
You need to calm down. Right. Mute site. Okay. Everyone confirm you're seeing Mr. Karlos Nazaire. Now, the important thing is... See, this is the button to stop the sharing, but there's 2 red buttons to stop the thing.
Oh, yes.
Isn't that such a... What's that called when you're trying to organize your system that it matches in a human behavior? There's a word for it when you're trying to set things up so that people's natural inclination is how you set up the flow of your software.
Good user interface.
Good user
UX.
interface is definitely one of them. Okay. Where are we?
I think we might be able to share it so just this comes up.
I don't know, sir.
If you go to stop sharing.
I'll bring the call back in here. I don't know if we can do that.
So then go
Screen.
window.
Entire screen? No.
Oh, that's very disappointing. It's like they have most of Zoom's features, but not all.
But not all of them. Oh, come on now. Right.
There's so much new young person lingo happening in the chat here. What does getting starched mean?
Yeah, he got starched.
Starched in my eyes feel like someone got starched out and they got knocked out. What does starched mean?
Silver Simon, could you wait a minute now? The Bodhi thing is back here, right? We need to... Bodhi's 4 tabs away. You can't be just jump ahead in the new show. I don't know who gave you the notes to the new show.
You know better than that.
But you know better. All right. Okay, so first up, we have Karlos Nazaire. You might have heard of him. He's
Yeah.
a weightlifter currently in the sport of weightlifting. And 2 weeks ago, apparently did this competition. So Vintage Lifts found this clip of him doing 180 and 215. Now, these are massive lifts, obviously, for a 94 kilo lifter. The snatch in particular is quite big. The original records were 188, 233. That was, or 189, sorry. I think that was Kakashvili was the snatch. And obviously the great Ilya Ilyin did the 233 kilos. And you might notice some changes in Karlos's technique, which is really funny because that was the thing you couldn't say before. You could not say that Karlos probably would lift a bit more weight if he fixed his technique. Some people, now I'm not saying lots of people, but I'm saying there were some people out there who got really upset. In fact, there were some people who I believe identified with his not great technique. And as a result, if he changed it, it felt like that was an attack on their personality. Whereas Karlos has said multiple times that he's working his technique. Now he's working with one of the best, if not the best ever Bulgarian weightlifter, Asen Zatev. And you may notice on his on his snatch, that he's fixed probably the major thing wrong with his snatch. And his hips are just way higher. This is like a textbook start. Like hips above parallel, hamstring line is approximately in line with the floor.
Yeah.
And hip presto, essentially no jump forward or way, way, way less. And I have to say, that snatch looks fucking gorgeous. That's beautiful.
No, it's a really, it's gone from something that looks very suspect to something that looks really, really nice now.
Yeah.
It's funny, we say it constantly over and over again about weightlifting technique, that there is a framework you have to get to. On yesterday's live stream, people were asking about the different styles and different types. And we said there's a framework that you must follow. Good technique is good technique. The movement of the bar should look a certain way. The movement of the knees and hips should be a certain way. And for many of you watching this, if you're doing snatches, you'll have a similar error of having your hips too low, knees forward in the first pull, barbell moving out and around the knees as it moves off the floor and comes past your knees. In this case, you see even one of the best lifters in the world is working to fix that, and a simple change made such a massive difference. So it is technical prowess, and chasing better positions is something that never leaves you. And simple, small changes can make a massive difference, even at massive world record level weights.
Now, the interesting thing, the snatch is much easier for athletes like Karlos to change because the demand per set isn't as high. You know, the weights are just much lighter than his max capacity. The clean and jerk will be much harder to lift, and 215 is significantly below his kind of capacity. We saw that 200 kilo clean and jerk in training. So it would make sense that it would look harder for a little bit of time, or he might just be slightly more out of shape. The clean, in my eyes, didn't necessarily need a huge adjustment. I mean, we know at least he's cleaned 230 a couple of times. He's probably done more. The jerk is definitely something that is the big enemy of Karlos, because we've seen him miss that the most of any lifting competition. In terms of the clean, this clean does look a bit better, but I'd like to see what something like 225 would look like on the clean before you'd make any changes. And even prior to this, that clean does look better, but the clean wasn't particularly egregious in my eyes. Is a more skillful, more dynamic clean more useful? Is that, you know, cleaning like Ilya Ilyin is probably the first person that comes to mind when it comes to dynamic style. Jesus Christ. Gabriel St. cleans very dynamic.
Yeah.
Karlos is a bit more on the strength side, but I don't necessarily know, was that a major issue in some ways, like, because it didn't seem to be the issue there. The jerk is the real thing that needs to be changed, but it does make sense for him to improve the quality of his clean. Could he be a bit more efficient? Could he be a little bit faster underneath the barbell? Could he have less of a jump forward? It wouldn't make sense not to try and improve that as well in long-term views, because could that make the difference to 2 kilos at the end? You know, is that 238 to 240?
I think you'll just see it easier to make changes to the jerk as well. If that clean is so much easier, it takes less out of him, is less of a physical burden on him, making those technical changes in the jerk, or, for want of a better term, just being a bit more powerful in the jerk because of the clean being easier, will definitely make sense.
He never really catches a bounce in that way where he's using the oscillation of the barbell or the energy from the barbell. His is more of a, it's kind of like catch it high, write it down and squat it up. It's like a very strong style of clean. It's not sneak under, catch it low, use the whip of the barbell to stand up. So it'd be interesting to see if he can improve upon that, because here's Aston's clean. Pretty dynamic. So Aston is the 6th best weightlifter of all time, and the best by Sinclair, according to Vintage Lifts. So pretty crazy. Also, check out the documentary, which we sponsored for Vintage Lifts, because, you know, how could you say no to a documentary?
Absolutely.
Yeah, about alien.
You know, I just want to say one thing there. Karlos is one of the top weightlifters in the world currently. And we have to see some of the heaviest lifts that are going to occur in competition this year. And we have to see them on Vintage Lift's Instagram channel.
That's very true, actually, yeah.
Like, what in God's name is going on in the sport where that's where we watch it? Like, I get it. It's not in a major international competition. I get it. Karlos mightn't necessarily want to be broadcasting it all too much. But what is going on in a sport that all of us care about, loads of us like to watch it, loads of us like to support it, yet we're watching some of the biggest, most important lifts that will happen this year happen on Vintage Lift's Instagram because he managed to find them.
Yeah, because he just said he found them on YouTube Shorts.
Okay.
You know, which is
crazy.
But I see Gregor and Nat and stuff are at Worlds, and they were showing the media area yesterday, and they've had to pay way more now, I think, and the media area is tiny. Well, but it's so funny, they don't realize that between Weightlifting House and those other channels over the last 15 years, they're the reason, alongside just general fitness becoming more popular, that the sport has increased in popularity. It's so funny. I'm not saying you should get special treatment per se, or you should be doing things for free, but the disconnect between the organizers understanding that social media exists and it's an important part of why weightlifting is the way it is to me quite funny. Now, the other option is Seb made sure that they had the tiniest area possible, which is what I would probably do, what I would do with Seeker Strength, you know?
What? Yeah, I just think it's so unfortunate. Obviously, in other sports, you've massive paid media rights which fund a massive amount of the sport, but the media side of things cannot be understated how important it is that you have wide scale, easily accessible viewing, like what Seb is doing for the sport, but for the organisers, for the IWF, for whoever's organising these competitions, you should be facilitating the videoing of these sessions as much as possible, facilitating access to the athletes as much as possible. That's the IWF coming now.
Oh, God.
They're outside.
So just to interrupt, there's an 8-week squat challenge going on at the moment. €500 cash, a year free, Seek a Sleep, a year free on the app, and a consultation for a first prize. Again, it's not necessarily going to be the biggest squat added. There's going to be a few other factors at play. You could enter, fill out the form above. It starts the week of the 13th of October. You need to have your video in, your next form, your final attempt, your max, after you run the rotating squat program part 1, entered by Friday the 12th. Big cash prize. The weights are very clumped together from all the entrants so far. So the most part is somewhere between 120 and kind of 180. Loads of people are in there. There's a few outliers. There's a 230, 250, and there's some lower end 100s and 105s and stuff. But obviously how much you add to your PB is going to be an important part of it. But there's also things like the aesthetics of the squat, what style of squat, where you started, how old you are, what body weight you are, how nice the squat looks, different aspects like that. We've asked you to give a little spiel about your training history and where you're at, and all that'll play a part, and Darryl, I will judge it fairly. Might get Callum involved as well as an impartial third judge.
Sam is just asking here, might be a dumb question, but I assume we don't get the program for free for the 8 weeks. No, you just have to be running the program, you have to be on the app, but you don't get it for free. But you'll get a year of it for free if you win.
That's the thing, and 500 cash for Christmas.
Yeah.
So here we've got Abdo Jan. So the first lift I wanted to look at Abdo's was this 175 in training. So he's a 79 kilo lifter. Put that in perspective for most of us. Liu Xiaojun's world record was 177 as a 77 kilo lifter. And he did at least 180 in training as a 77. So just to put that in straight perspective.
Yeah, it's phenomenal lifting. He seems to be maintaining all of that speed, all of that power that we've seen for the last few months, even at that 175. Like, that pull off the floor is frighteningly fast.
That does look like 180s there.
Yeah,
so
100%.
We also had a back squat from him, which is 290. And this is enormous. So Liu Xiaojun's best back squat was purported to be 305. not a lot of other big back squats on record from, say, the 77s that we can give reference for. But this 290 is absolutely gargantuan. Probably on the limit.
Yeah, I would say that certainly looks near maximal. It's not something where you'd say there's probably 20 kilos left in the tank there by any means. One thing, though, is just how well he maintains that position.
Yeah.
A lot of the Egyptian lifters we've seen in the past were a small but more tilted forward. They tend to have shorter torsos and longer legs, which didn't always lead to great squatting positions, or sorry, great aesthetic squat positions. But in this case, like super vertical torso, he looks like he could front squat that.
Not to make an Egyptian joke here about mummies, but there is a lot of wrappage going on. I would say there's probably knee sleeves under those wraps. Now, there's no limit at the moment to what you can wear. There used to be a limit in weightlifting competitions. Obviously, in training, you can do whatever you want, but that is more wraps for sure. Now, he's in the training hall currently. We've got this 160 without straps. And oh boy, does that look good.
That looks insanely fast.
Yeah.
Very excited to see what's going to happen on the competition platform. Who's his main competition?
I actually don't really know, to be honest, at the moment.
Yeah.
I'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to tell the weight class changes. I didn't look through the start book too aggressively. Now, we missed this lift as well, this 238 from Akbar, who I'm super excited to see lift at Worlds. He'll be lifting in the 110 kilo class. Is it 109 or 110? I can't even remember right now.
110, I think.
He's going to be lifting that class, and this looks ridiculously easy. So this is the kind of dynamic clean we're talking about, where clearly very strong, clearly a horse, but also catches the bounce, uses the whip of the bar really well, is very active in the pull under. So
there's another aspect to Akbar's jerk here that I really like, and it's once he locks his elbows out, you are never in doubt whether he's going to make that jerk or not.
Yes.
It's like they lock into position. He's like a transformer with the barbell overhead. He is so solid in that overhead position. There's no barbell out in front of him. He's not really compensating for anything. He doesn't look tight or restricted in any position. Once those elbows go to lock out, he is locked in.
We do see from the Uzbek lifters that they seem to do a lot of overhead work. They seem to doing like bottoms up overhead squats. We've seen Akbar do squat jerks before. We've seen him do overhead squats with bands on plates. So they clearly do a lot of stability work, and it obviously pays off. Now, getting the time and efforts for that stability work is the thing that's going to be hard for most people in training. But if you're a full-time athlete and you're training 15, 16 times a week, it's very easy to slot in a session, you know, 30, 40 minutes where you're primarily working on that stability, and that'll add up every week. So I'm sure that plays a part in how they're improving that stability.
Now, on this point, before we go on to the next piece, somebody in the chat said they were talking to Bodhi. I want to hear everything that he said. If you can send in screenshots of messages, but send in whatever, if you have any details or the behind the scenes of what's going on. Obviously, a lot of what's going on with the enhanced games kind of stuff at the moment is very much behind closed doors. We'll see one or two very curated pieces being released by the athletes and by the enhanced games themselves. So it would be great if there's any background on it, what the kind of contractual obligations are or what the plan is.
Yeah, so we've heard a lot of different things from different athletes, even just in weightlifting, about the enhanced games. And then there's obviously a few top athletes like Fred Curley, Ben Proud, the swimmer. Fred is the athletics from USA. And we've heard a few weightlifters who've been approached, and the things they've been told have seemed to be pretty different. They've been told a couple of different scenarios about what's happening. Some of this was by different people in the organization. So it's definitely up for grabs, I suppose. They're still up in the air is probably a better way of posting it, in what they seem to be going, that they're doing. Bodhi's obviously the first weightlifter, which is an interesting choice from their point of view. One interesting thing to note about the enhanced games that wasn't apparent before is that they will be selling TRT services, which is obviously an absolutely huge market and it's growing every year, which is great.
Yeah, yeah.
They seem to be selling those, so it looks like it might be some kind of ploy for them to be advertising those services. Like when this gentleman, James Magnuson, his 50-meter freestyle, he was the only person in the pool.
Yeah.
Like, this is the event. It's not like they're doing these big competitions, which what was promised or what was sold to everyone. Or the impression I got was they were going to do an Olympic Games, the equivalent of that, but it was going to be the Enhanced Games.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing now is these individual events, which are more PR stunts, in my opinion, which isn't really what was being sold. Like, we were being sold that same level of event. Certainly not, maybe not the same magnitude, not size of people, but this to me isn't going to move the needle if that's what they actually want to do. Like, this is a training PB, which is still incredibly impressive, obviously, but it's not the rival to the Olympics, you know?
I think what it is it's kind of a chase for world records. We've heard from a few different people, and it's just being said in the chat here about the world records. Monetary incentives for world records in particular sports, in particular weight classes, seem to be the major thing that they're pushing for, which kind of makes sense with these kind of events. Getting a world record, beating a world record, blowing one of those out of the water is obviously a major thing within the sport, no matter who did it or when they did it or what the circumstances were. And I think that's probably what we're going to end up seeing in weightlifting, is kind of pretty small level events. One or two very, very good athletes there going out, breaking world records in a competition environment, and then getting large cash payouts from that.
Now, as an individual, as an athlete, that makes absolutely perfect sense. That's a no-brainer, especially if you're not someone who's going to be on top again or in a country where it's going to be lucrative for you. That's, as an individual, I would never judge anyone for that. That's absolutely that's get that bag, as the kids say. Is that's what they say, you know?
Let's be real as well. If you're an athlete of that world-class or elite standard, particularly in the sports that they're looking at so far, there is not a lot of money to be made. Very few people become rich from swimming, from weightlifting, from track and field.
Yeah.
You don't make the big, large amounts of cash. And in other sports, what we would see commonly, let's say a sport like rugby, you'll play in Ireland, you'll play in England or whatever for your entire career. And then commonly people will go abroad for the last 2 or 3 years to make larger sums of money to kind of retire from. And I could certainly see this being a career path for a lot of Olympic level athletes in these smaller sports where they might not have made that much money over the course of their entire career. They can then make a decision for 2 or 3 years to continue training, make or have a chance to make a quite significant sum of money for the sake of 2 or 3 big training cycles, and then be able to retire or make that transition into working life a hell of a lot easier afterwards.
Now, lots of the weightlifting community don't love Bodie for reasons which we won't go into, but he's going to try and break records that are set in the 94 kilo class, I believe, from this Worlds, and it's going to be sometime next May. So assuming Karlos probably does something like 180 or 183, it's definitely possible for Bodie to break the snatch. I don't think the clean and jerk is going to happen, or it's very unlikely. So I would say the snatch, he's done 182 before, you know. So if he's given the best environment there, let's assume he doesn't have to worry about testing and he had to worry about it before. Not impossible.
Yeah.
I know people aren't enamored by it, but it's not impossible in my eyes for him to go ahead and make that. Now, Bodie didn't say too much other than that he would be coming for some world records. He said he's making a video about the whole thing and he's going to answer questions here. Runner Boy wants to know how to be as good looking as a fridge. I moisturize a lot, you know. Get a regular haircut. I don't get regular haircuts. Adam has
pepper spray.
Where are you looking at?
Pepper spray.
Oh,
Peter Attia suggests avoiding heavy squats and deadlifts for non-athletes. Are unilateral lifts like back rack lunges safer yet equally effective for strength development? Look, I get where people are coming from with this, and everybody doesn't need a big back squat and a big deadlift. To be honest, that's not really what we're doing here. Like,
I'll answer this if you want to.
We're really involved in making you as strong as possible, putting you in as best a shape as possible. Back squats and deadlifts are not.
No, I think Peter here is wrong, and I've heard what they've said.
He is wrong, yeah.
Listen to McGill as well, and I think it's just complete nonsense. I like both of them. I like Peter Attia. I like Stuart's stuff by and large, or some of the stuff at least. I certainly don't detest them. Peter Attia has been on a lot of stuff for a long time. He's been pretty consistent with his messaging. He's also on the board of Athletic Greens and stuff, so that might be a mark against him. But, he's been on having muscle mass, being leaner. He talked about being keto wasn't great. I like his books in general. But the thing here is that's just a lack of understanding of training. And that's what typically my biggest crouch is from Peter Attia. And I've definitely said this before because people often ask us about it. Like when he was talking about, he got help with someone training and they stopped him doing pull-ups for a whole year to fix his technique. And I remember he was like, what the fuck?
That's insane.
But the thing here is strength is the biggest concern. It's not necessarily muscle mass. So like relative strength to yourself when you're an aging non-athlete is the really important part here. So obviously there's a good connection between muscle mass and strength, but the ability to display strength with the muscle mass you have over good ranges of motion in a stable environment, in my opinion, why wouldn't you be doing squats? Why wouldn't you be doing things like deadlifts or a variation of those? They are lifts that require higher force and thus require more strength reserves to complete. And our lunge is going to be great. Yeah, our goblet squat's going to be great. Absolutely. But there's no reason you can't be doing back squats. There's no reason you can't be doing some variation of the deadlift. You don't absolutely have to be pushing for maxes. You don't ever have to do a max. But the big thing to pay attention to here, if you're worried about longevity and you're worried about maybe you or your parents, it's not the muscle mass. Muscle mass is important, but it's really the strength that muscle mass gives you is a real thing that gives you the benefits. Obviously, the presence of muscle mass is really useful metabolically. It's really useful for your glucose metabolism, all of that stuff, which is great. But the concern is how much strength can you display at your current body weight is what I would be looking at. And 40 kilo front rack lunges or 70 kilo back squats for a set of 10 if your body weight 70 kilos. It's a no-brainer to me to be repping out 10 kilos. Good range of motion, requires a lot of stability. They're not dangerous. I think, to be honest, I didn't watch the full clips of the recent thing, which I saw people talking about, but I've heard them talk about it before, and I just think they're wrong in general.
100%.
Now, here's Riskey with a 200 kilo clean and jerk in the training hall. They were talking about for a while that he was moving up to the 88s or 89s, but he's going in as the 79 kilo lifter, so which would be the same one as Abdo. It's a nice clean and jerk, 200 kilos.
Yeah, it is. It certainly doesn't look too confident overhead. You also don't know what the circumstance of this training session is, like, is this the first heavy session since he'd arrived in country? What his weight cut is like, if he is cutting weight, what he's, there's a lot of unknowns here.
I kind of thought, to be honest, the jerk looks fine to me, but the clean looks a bit labored in the turnover. Like, obviously, stuff like that will freshen up.
Yeah.
He might not have been in the best shape for this competition. Obviously, the next Olympics is his real goal. Once you've won one already,
Yeah.
There's a lot to be said for conserving yourself. Elia was a great example of athletes who did that, who really put himself in a good situation. So it'll be interesting to see what he does on the platform. He certainly doesn't look as sharp as Abdo Jan's, like is or whatever, in terms of those training hall lifts. Now, we don't know what Abdo can clean and jerk, and I'd say that's probably with good reason. But we do know what he's snatching, and it'll be interesting to see. It should be a good competition all the same.
Absolutely. Wait, do you know when that's on?
79s. I could check, but I won't right now. It'll be on in a few days, I would say. And now, onto a bit of powerlifting. Colton and John Haack is off.
Lads, this is an absolute shame.
Yeah, it's rare that I'd be looking forward to something in powerlifting. I could actually be looking forward to an event or anything. It's not really my shtick. Obviously, appreciate lifts in retrospect and watch them, but it's rare I'd be like, oh, I'm going to pay attention to when that happens and see who comes out on top. So all of this was in the abs powerlifting stories and in the story of the owner, the person running abs. And basically what happened was they had an initial contract. Both athletes signed the contract. Then I believe Colton wanted more money. They re-signed a new contract. Then they booked out the RDS, which is a venue in Dublin. I think they had that almost fully sold out or had it fully sold out. And then Colton pulled out to do a meet in Siberia, which he said is offering him about 5 times the money. I don't know what abs were paying him. I don't know what they pay athletes in general. That kind of cash adds up really quickly.
Yeah.
50 grand in the powerlifting competition for a load of athletes, if you're paying for some featured athletes to come there and paying for prizes and paying for other things, that doesn't come around very fast. So really what you need there is sponsors for those events more than making money for the competition. So I'm not sure what the financial situation is, but if you had a big company in somewhere else, they could easily throw down a number that would dwarf what abs would probably be giving him. It's definitely not a great situation. It's not a great look.
That sucks.
Yeah, to sign a second contract and then pull out.
Yeah, it's really disappointing because you don't get to see that face off. It's also disappointing knowing the lads and abs put in a massive amount of work to get those athletes to come to the competition. There's now also a huge number of athletes who are peaked and ready to compete at a very, very high level who aren't going to compete or are going to compete elsewhere, I assume. I assume the meet just isn't happening now.
Well, I think what they're doing is they're moving up one of their other competitions a few weeks later, and they're going to get all those lifters to show up to this event because they had the RDS booked out.
Yeah.
So I think what they're doing is a lot of these
Okay.
boys and girls to show up, which isn't great for them because they're going to have to peak earlier, and there's a lot of competitions on towards the end of the year. So they're going to try and condense their training down a bit, which is massive, especially in powerlifting. Because if you're planning for powerlifting, you're thinking for the end of this year, you're looking at the end of summer last year. You're like, what's it going to look like? Obviously, the fine details will change, but it's powerlifting is like a big, massive ship when you're steering it, and then trying to change that direction is very hard. So, should be some good lifters. I believe on one of those lifters is Kyle Carvey. We've seen on the new show plenty. He's going to do some big lifts. So one of the lifts he did was a 420 kilo deadlift. Please.
He is just a monster, isn't he?
He's a monster.
To be honest, I think that's what the sport of powerlifting needs. It's just more absolute monsters who look like monsters who are lifting insane weights.
But what about I think the sport could do with more like IPF fake natties. I think that could be better for the sport.
With super weight sumo stances and massive arches in their bench, is it?
Look, you have to hand it to Kyle. Conventional deadlifts, buries his squats.
Oh, it just looks so good as well.
Because he beat his bench press as well, which is 287.5 kilos, 633 pounds. He's a unit.
He is a scary human being.
Yeah, he's massive.
Like when you consider what that man could do to you by squeezing his hands together. Jesus Christ.
So you got 287.5. And I believe he's doing one of the abs competitions. To be honest, it's hard to keep up with them.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
The competitions are doing, but I believe he's doing one of their competitions soon. And this is the 287.5 in 2 more weeks. Okay, so he's going to be doing the San Diego Rumble 2. Oh, look at that pause.
Yeah.
That's a legitimate pause.
Yeah, he's just a monster.
Yeah, that 420 is really interesting as well. Conventional.
Yeah.
Looks so easy.
The future of deadlifting is the past.
One of the most recent big squats from him. What have we seen? 425. Beat my previous PR of. It's been amazing prep. Tripling 900.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Okay, so 936. This is a PB. 425 kilos. What shoes are they? Are they Adidas? I hope not.
I don't know.
So deep. It's crazy.
Such a good squat.
It's insane. Massive lifting from Kyle.
Like, we're not going to single anyone out here, but that's just a much better squat than...
Don't single anyone out before you say it.
Than some others.
The lads are talking about gear in the chat. So, yeah. Karlos, we want to watch at Worlds. Abdo will be one to watch. Akbar will be one to watch. There's not a very powerful Chinese team on the men's side at Worlds, which is definitely interesting. And we were talking to Squat Jerk journalist Elian early in the year, and they're aware of that themselves, that the men's side, it doesn't have any world beater talents right now for whatever variety of reasons that might be from.
Maybe they're just like, let's give everyone else a chance. We did it for long enough.
Well, we've got North Korea coming in absolutely flaming hot.
Can I just there's one comment here. I won't read out the specific comment, but it's more the idea behind it of people being allowed to take things during the enhanced games, and they're allowed to take things even like they did back in the 80s. Lads, if you think that the drugs that exist now aren't better than what existed in the 80s, you're mental.
The interesting thing about weightlifting is, so if you compare it to powerlifting or strength sports, other strength sports, usually say in powerlifting or bodybuilding, the more drugs you take, the better it'll have on your total. You can almost, to a certain degree, and diminishing returns after a while, a positive return on kilos for milligrams taken. For weightlifting, there's definitely an upper limit, which starts to affect athleticism and positions. But also, don't ever forget that there's still a minimum kind of dosage that some of those bigger lifts are hit with. You know, there's still a certain amount of gear that's needed to do certain lifts. You know, if you're trying to snatch fucking 190 at whatever body weight, there's no getting around, at least from what we have seen and heard and talked to from a variety of different athletes and coaches and doctors. You're not snatching 190 with TRT, like.
Absolutely not.
So,
or peptides.
No, you're not doing a cycle of peptides and
No.
suddenly snatching 190. Like, it just doesn't happen. Are better athletes better genetically? Of course. Could a similar person, or could another person take as much gear as they want and never snatch that? Absolutely. I've known people who've taken gear and couldn't snatch more than, I think it was like 110, very small numbers respectively for taking a lot of gear. So it's interesting the fact that they're still really talented athletes and they have to train hard, but it is also interesting in the fact that there's just a certain amount of gear needed to do certain lifts. So it will be interesting to see. I suppose what'll really show up is if some of these athletes, more athletes go weightlifting and they don't improve on their numbers massively, or it's a question of other sports in terms of time or swimming or whatever, where you're like, wait a minute, hang on a second.
Just to address the Silver Simons, who says, I don't think so. If you look at the common fails for the last 15 years, it's always the same ones. A lot of that is, it's always the same ones because that's what people have access to in a massive amount of countries due to geographical reasons and also talent within that country and also money available within that country. And also that's what the tests exist to catch. So you have to know what the actual compound is if you want to make a test to catch it.
The test to catching is like that airplane analogy. So during World War II, where they were putting armor on the planes that came back. So it's a bias in terms of that's what's being tested for. And to be honest, a lot of athletes will tell you as well, the things they tested positive for weren't things they were taking. A lot of them will say that. Now, whether you believe all of them is obviously up to your own interpretation, but we're not even speculating on that. We know for a fact that there's athletes taking things that are pretty wacky and pretty out there. Whether they have access to them or what happens at the enhanced games. I believe they want a lot of control over what the athletes take and when they take it, from what we've heard. So again, none of that information is super forthcoming from them, and maybe they don't want that. They want to keep it ambiguous. But if you have any questions, we've got like 10 or 15 minutes if you have some training questions while we're here.
Wublezex says, is going from 130 to 200 back squat as a novice feasible goal for 1 year, or should I be more realistic?
130.
Are you the most talented person you've ever known squatting?
If the first time you squatted you could do 130, then yeah.
If people look at you and say, geez, I'd say you'd be good at squatting, just by looking at you and how you move, then you could.
The first time I squatted, I could squat 130s.
Yeah.
So when did I do 200? Did it take maybe a year and a half?
Certainly there are people who exist, but what I would say is you'd probably already know, if you get what I mean.
X is saying dudes not snatch over 110 on gears. You know what? If you're having fun, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
If you're having a good time, if you look lovely, if you look great naked, if you look good in training and your clothes, and you snatch 110 on gear, you know what?
Yeah.
Do you know what? If you're having
the snatch is the least you're worried about.
If you're having a good time, gene doping, from what I've heard, is definitely happening in some places. From what we've been told. Everyone who I know is involved in this is convinced there's people gene doping. I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, for everyone we know who's involved in that side of things has at some point said to us
it's happening,
that they think gene doping is happening. It's actually
everybody who would know.
We know someone who is, and I won't say because obviously it was, they obviously didn't say it in public, but a certain person was running a lab which was involved in testing, and they said they were convinced that gene doping is happening.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
yeah, what the effects of gene doping are, who knows?
Banana Bread says, question regarding natty limit.
Is it gone?
Did that just disappear?
It did, yeah.
That just disappeared.
Banana Bread, your question disappeared. There's a guy in my gym that squats 210, 220, and he's only been really focusing on squatting for about a year to year and a half. He has some soccer background though, but I don't know how much strength training he did. There's a guy in my gym that squats 210. Yeah, if you've been training as an athlete for lots of years, that could definitely happen. You know, if you've been doing any kind of strength training, it obviously puts you off to a better start. A lot of times, when you hear from those athletes, you know, it'll be like, "Oh, I can squat 220," and you're like, "What kind of squat are you
How
doing?
deep is that squat?
Are you squatting on a box?"
Banana Bread says, question regarding Soviet, i.e. forward lean, versus Chinese vertical technical model. For model of snatch, which do you teach and why? Always Soviet. Soviet is the best.
Definitely a thing here again to kind of reiterate this point. When it comes to the technical models, what you're looking at is not necessarily some minor technical flourishes like slight change in toe position, apparent differences in start position, or difference in start position based on anatomy. Is what you're looking at is essentially bar pad is what you really need to focus on. And what you'll see is that the bar pad across all those best lifters largely similar and fits into a similar template. So that's what you really need to be focusing on. When does the barbell accelerate? Where does the barbell travel to? How does it end up there? How is that facilitated? That's what you need to be concerned with. Again, your body type, definitely. So this is what I was talking about yesterday. You know, find 4 or 5 different lifters across the years with apparently similar body types to you and see what could be in common here, you know? Fairly certain he's clean, but he looks like he's a textbook squatter. Yeah, it could just be a freaky. I have an athlete who was pretty high level in soccer or football, is now doing track cycling, and like he's making crazy strength gains and wattages and stuff on his output. So the genetics are out there.
Good athletes are just better at sports.
They sure is.
You know?
Oh, my wife got me a few weeks ago where she goes, "Oh, what sport would you have played if you're athletic?" She got me. I'd seen those reels and she still got me. I was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "I've snatched a weight that like less than 0.0." I was like belligerent. We're at our son's training. And I was like, "What do you mean if I was athletic?" I was like, she got me. She got me good. She's fucking stone-faced me. Absolutely. She starched me, as the kids would say. I deserved it.
Jesus, that is funny. That's a gut-wrenching.
Do you ever see that clip of it's on a game show and your one is like, "Watch it, Sophie, calm down. I'm overreacting." Like she catches herself half right.
Yeah.
That's what I was like.
Midway through shouting,
Yeah.
she's like,
"What do you mean?"
"It doesn't matter."
Camouflage for Yi Sonini. I don't know who that is. Oh, he's adept in IWF standards. He's aimed to compete in powerlifting eventually. Nice.
Okay.
Satellitium. Great name. How do you navigate the information overload on training if it seems everyone is doing something different, especially with S&C? Now, it seems like that, but the best people are all doing pretty similar things, which is making muscles, making those muscles stronger, getting the athletes to do conditioning, doing plyometrics where it makes sense, and then a different combination of that. What you're seeing is certain people are selling things that are different. But if you were to go to places, now this is obviously impossible to do, but if you were to go to, say, wrestling gyms or judo places, or, for example, we were in South Korea's Olympic Training Center last year, 2 years ago, 2 years ago, where they train their judo, their volleyball, their soccer, their fencers, all their athletes. They're all doing something that's very similar to what you would see American football players doing by and large. Everyone's trying to make muscle. Everyone's trying to make the muscle stronger and faster. Everyone's trying to get conditioned. Everyone's trying to have less fat, more muscle, more squatter, more gooder.
Yeah.
So how do you navigate the information on training? First of all, if training is a part of your life that's literally related to your life goals or financial outcomes, pay someone who knows what they're doing to do it. I think that's one of the best things you can do. If you're trying to figure out for yourself, it's kind of part of the fun, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say as well. So I've done a massive amount of S&C courses workshops. I did my undergrad in exercise science. We would have done many, many modules on these. In fact, I would say almost everyone's doing everything the same. Like those little flourishes Owen's talking about are really where people try and carve out a little niche for themselves for the sake of selling something and selling their own difference. But if you look at professional S&C coaches doing S&C for good high level athletes or in, let's say, hospital rehab settings, they're all doing very, very similar things, like down to the point where you would be within 75% of very similar programming across most of them.
Yeah, like good S&C, you'd get a little bit of the flourishes be slightly different, like how the days are organized and stuff. But so the physical traits from humans are the same, you know, that speed, the power, strength, the conditioning, jump height, change of direction, speed. So that's kind of where good sports science comes into play, where it's useful to kind of try and bring a lot of that together. But unfortunately, disseminating the information and figure out what's best, unfortunately, comes with experience and understanding and trying to become an expert in the field, I suppose. Do you know how to watch IWF for free? No, it's like €17, I think, for 2 weeks.
That's what I was just about to say. Lads, if any company deserves you to spend money for their footage,
yeah,
it's Weightlifting House.
Yeah.
They're doing a phenomenal job. Go and watch it there. If you like weightlifting, then you get to watch all the classes. I know a lot of you might just want to watch one or two classes with kind of your favorite lifter in it, but it's there. Like you can watch all of them, throw it on while you're at work and watch the B classes or C classes. I would highly recommend spending the money, because what will happen is if there's too much of this pirated, eventually nobody will put weightlifting on TV. There won't be anyone there to video it, and we're relying on Instagram to figure out what's going on.
Yeah. I think it's €17 or something. Seb didn't pay us, said or anything, but it's definitely. Kieran Robbins said, is a stretching while sore a good or a bad idea? Beast in Miami 2 days ago, worth stretching even though they're still sore. So the consensus for this used to be you shouldn't do that, but I'll be honest, I don't think it makes a difference.
Yeah. What I actually really like is if you have to get extra length or range of motion somewhere after the session when you're still warm. So let's say you beasted your hamstrings, you did a load of RDLs, but you know you want to gain range in the hamstrings. Actually, in the cool down from that session, I get after that mobility. There is some research out there to say that it elongates your recovery curve. So you might take an extra day or so to recover fully from it. But to be honest, if you're looking to make those structural changes and really gain that extra range of motion, I'd be getting it in immediately after the session. I actually do like a bit of stretching when you're sore as well. Not so much for gaining range of motion or for the proprioceptive and neuromuscular factors, but more so for increasing blood flow to the area. So a lot of the time when we're stretching out a tissue, we're really pulling all those fibers tight. We're constricting those capillary beds and flushing some of that blood out. And then when we come back to a flexed or a non-stretched position, it will allow new kind of fresh blood to flow in there, and it might help with that recovery a little bit.
But Albrecht's saying natty squat limit. In old videograph, you suggested limit was probably 200. Could you provide some more context so I don't feel bad? I definitely didn't say that the natty squat limit was 200 kilos. Absolutely, it's definitely not. Maybe you're referring to what what a significant chunk of people could probably do. Like a 200 kilo squat is actually massive for the most people who ever touch a barbell. It's definitely big, but it's definitely not the natty squat limit.
No.
But I think it was less than 8% of people squat over 200 who've run hours. And that's a massive sample group. Literally, 10,000 plus.
Tens of thousands.
Yeah, tens of like so many people. So 8% of an already biased group are already training. So a lot of that group. So that's a pretty good 1 in 10-ish.
Yeah.
1 in 10-ish people who start strength training seem to get there or get a little bit beyond that. Now getting way beyond that, you're talking like.
I think as well that's a skewed group due to the fact that they're the people who are looking for a specific, very aggressive squat program and are willing to spend money on it. So the number is probably less than that. Again, one thing I want to mention, and this is something I find is difficult to verbalize clearly, and so some people don't really pick up on what I'm really saying here. But the inter-individual difference between people's genetics far outweighs in intensity and span the difference between people taking drugs and not taking drugs. Because if you look at people who are squatting, there are some people who will never get more than 140 or 150 kilos on a barbell, no matter how hard they try, no matter how much they train, no matter how intelligently they train, they will just never be able to achieve that. There are some people who will be able to squat 200 kilos after a year, really easy, everything going really well. The difference between those two people is so vast, so much vastly bigger than the difference between a person taking gear or not taking gear, that a lot of these things of like natty limits and stuff don't really exist, because just the difference between people is so utterly massive. So there is no real natty limit. There is no real thing of what you can achieve with or without drugs. It really comes down to the individual people and how well made you are for squatting.
Simon's saying, as a dad, I can either work out or get 8 hours sleep. How do I manage the fatigue from 6 hours average a day? So I definitely don't like the idea of getting less sleep, obviously. It's literally the only reason, it's the only product we sell, the only supplement we sell, I should say, is something that helps with sleep. I don't like the idea of getting less sleep. Most of what you see in the recommendations of research is the 7 to 9. So what I'd be probably saying here is, if your life is super busy and there's just no way you could possibly train in a different time of day, I would reduce the length of those training sessions, and I would try and get maybe that 7 if it's just not feasible, because obviously not exercising or training isn't good for your health either, but at the same time, there's very clear negative outcomes from getting less sleep across the span of your life in short and long term. So I would say less time spent in the gym, but getting some sessions in. Possibly doing something like getting 2 sessions on the weekend, and then maybe 2 sessions in on the weekdays. So you've got 4 gym sessions there, and you're getting most of the week then. So 5 out of 7 days, you're getting that 8 hours sleep. And I think if you got away with that, 2 shorter sessions during the week, you'd probably end up with a pretty good scenario where you're getting mostly great night's sleep all throughout the week, and then you are still getting solid training sessions in. But I would definitely try and see if at all possible. I know obviously some people's life situation is rough, but if you could do it somewhere else, an understanding partner makes a massive difference if you have availability at that.
You know what's nice as well in those cases is just to really narrow down what you're going to actually train.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you might just pick the back squat, you might just pick the bench press, or you might pick a mile run. Just doing those kind of 2 sessions a week just to really chase something there. When you're in this stage, you can still get good sleep on all the other nights. You might only have to train twice throughout the week, and you'll still make progress and see progress being made, but you're not just hitting everything with a kind of massive program.
So do you guys have any tips for restoring an old barbell, especially cleaning the bearings?
So with most bearing barbells, when you take them apart, you have to be very, very careful because they're needle bearings. Mm-hmm. Needle bearings will just fall out of the housing. So assuming you take the sleeve off, the first thing is you buy a good circlip pliers, because circlips are the worst thing in the entire world.
The worst thing.
And they're going to fly all over the place, right? And a lot of those circlips are quite proprietary, like the circlips on your work sandbar weren't easily replaced. So get a good circlip pliers, you'll have it forever. When you take that bearing, the whole sleeve off, just be careful of where the bearings are. Make sure you're not losing ball bearings or needle bearings out of it. Then really simply, you get a can of brake cleaner and flush everything with brake cleaner. Get all the bearings, get every piece of grease out of the bearings you possibly can. Clean the shaft itself, get that as spickety-span as possible with your brake cleaner. Try not to go at it with any abrasives. If there's real deep gouges and stuff in there, then get like 400 grits wet and dry sandpaper just to smooth those out and take any gnarly kind of knurls off them. But mostly keep all of that steel on the bar that you can, and then just get a tube of lithium grease and put lithium grease on those bearings, and you'll be good to go. You can do things like spray grease. You could do things like silicone grease. But to be honest, lithium grease